Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
So here we are. We are at our 5th Wednesday of our Lenten series that we've been doing on Wednesday nights, fasting and feasting, based on the Unity Lent booklet that I just want to encourage you, if you haven't picked it up, that it's available on unity.org. It's free literature. You can download it. And if you're wondering, who else is doing this? There are other people out there that are going through this process, this Unity Lenten metaphysical understanding. Well, I found out from the editor that they had printed 50,000 copies and they ran out, and they've done another printing of it. And so that's just the printed copies, and the downloads are also. So there are many people out there who are connected with us, who are one with us in this spiritual journey that we're doing through the Lenten booklet, and I'm really grateful to have had the honor to get to write an entry on healing, and I was supposed to speak on it 3 weeks ago, and I take my job really seriously, and I was working on my healing pretty intensely, and unfortunately I got sick, and I just want to let you know I'm doing the work, and just a big thank you to Karen Tudor for stepping in and speaking and sharing her beautiful message and gift that evening. So as we're going through Lent, I thought we'd have a little humor, so I wanted to share with you a little Lenten joke. So, a man is stumbling through the rain, and he's a faithful parishioner, and he is going past hamburger huts and steakhouses because he's abstaining from meat. This is the 3rd Friday of Lent. And so he finds himself in a monastery, the monastery of Mount Angel, and he asks for shelter. And so they take him in, and it happens to be dinner time, and they offer him a fish and chips meal, and it's the most delicious fish and chips that he's ever had. So after the meal, he feels that he really wants to go back and thank the chefs and just let them know how amazing it was and just his gratitude. And so he goes into the kitchen, and the 2 brothers come forward, and they introduce themselves and say, "Hi, I'm Brother Michael, and this is Brother Francis." And the man says, "I am so grateful to meet you. It is such a pleasure. Thank you so much. That was the most delicious fish and chips meal I have ever had. Would you, just out of curiosity, would you be willing to tell me who cooked what?" And so Brother Michael says, "Well, I'm the fish fryer." And the other brother, the man turns to the other brother and says, "Well, then you must be." And the other brother says, "Well, yes, I'm afraid I'm the chipmunk." Little Lent humor, right? I love the roll of laughter. So isn't it great in Unity that we're not asking you to give up anything? You can eat all the wonderful things you want to eat if you'd like to, though I hear of a lot of people lately during this springtime as we're moving from winter into spring, getting ready for some lighter clothes. We're doing cleanses and fasts and diets, and I'm also hearing about those of you who are decluttering your homes, so clearing out space in the body, clearing out room in your home, so that we can prepare for the new growth and the new life of spring and the resurrection. I feel like I've already had my resurrection from coming out of that sickness. It was a long journey, and I'm grateful to be here. Just to be here is such a gift. Lent, there's an acronym that I've heard for Lent in Unity. Let's erase negative thinking, L-E-N-T, Lent, and let's embrace new thinking. So that's really the process that the metaphysical process that Charles Fillmore is calling us into, that we're crossing out, denying negative thoughts which have a manifesting power into our lives, and replacing them with new thoughts, positive, life-giving, and affirming thinking. So the affirmation for this is, I fast from self-concern and I feast on compassion for others. So repeat after me. I fast from self-concern.
I fast from self-concern.
I feast on compassion for others.
I feast on compassion for others.
Breathe that in. So you may be thinking, what's wrong with self-concern? Like, aren't I supposed to care about myself? Why? Well, aren't I supposed to look out for myself, make sure my needs are supplied? Well, the way that I see self-concern is, we're not talking about self-love or self-care. Yes, we continue with self-love, self-care. Self-concern is like when we get consumed with ourselves, when we get absorbed in our own stuff, when we've got the blinders on, we're in the stuff, right? We forget that we're one of 7 billion human beings on this planet. Can you imagine that? Imagine just seeing 7 billion. I can't even think you could see as far out as how many people there would be if we were all kind of crammed in one big Earth concert or something. There would be so many of us. Recognizing that each person is operating out of their own pain, their own needs, their own desires, their own perspective. And how many of those 7 billion people are operating out of a desire to meet my personal needs? Really, how many? So we can start making it all about us and think, well, the guy who cut me off on 610, that was, why was he doing that? He was just trying to whatever. Rather than maybe it was in his blind spot. Maybe he didn't see me, or maybe he's just in a rush to try to get somewhere. And it's funny that I thought about talking about this, and on my way here, I'm like, I'm going to feel compassion for whatever happens on the road. And the car in front of me had this license plate that said, Namaste. So I thought, well, that is somebody who's a compassionate person. And just even thinking governments, organizations, corporations, are they really thinking about my personal needs? We can start to think that they're out to get us in some way, out to get me personally, and really remembering that their consideration can be coming from their own desires and intentions and that sort of thing. I wanted to share with you, and if we had the desire to sit around and have a story hour, you all could, but I don't think we'll do that tonight. But I wanted to share with you this book, which was shared with me in a ministerial school class, and now some people who are in ministerial school here that may know the experience of when you're in school and there's a student situation and everybody's kind of all riled up about that somebody needs to do something about this, and then years later, like, what was that thing that we were all upset about? Well, anyway, we're all there, and we were with our counseling instructor, Reverend Robert Brummett, and listening to all of our gripes. And so he takes out this book, and this book is called Zoom, and it's by Istvan Banye, and he's an illustrator. And the book begins with this illustration. What is this? It's orange, it's got yellow dots, jaggedy lines. This is us when we're in our stuff. We're just seeing this very small part of life and of the situation, right? So we zoom out a little bit, and we see it's a rooster. Oh, that's what that is. It's a rooster. Zoom out a little bit more, and you see the rooster's out a window somewhere, kids looking at it. Even further out, they're in a building, and we see the kids are on a farm. They're on a farm, and they're farm animals. And you zoom out a little bit more, and see more of the farm, and zoom out, And you see that the farm is actually a toy farm. Somebody's playing with it. There's a girl who's playing with the toy farm on the cover of a magazine, held by a person who's taking a nap in a lounge chair on the deck of a boat. It's a cruise ship, a cruise liner that is on the side of a bus in a city. Think about how small the rooster is now. Zooming out more, out into the city. And it's on television, actually. That image of the city is on television, and a man is watching it out in the desert somewhere. See the cactus? On a stamp, a postage stamp, on an envelope addressed to Australia, received by some folks in Australia on the beach, out on the beach, and they are seen by a pilot in a plane who is flying away from the island, up in the sky. We're out into space. Just see Earth, and finally, just this small circle of our planet. So imagine whatever problem you might be facing, zooming out, way out to this. Just one planet of many planets in the solar system, in the universe. And your problem appears to be quite small when you look at it from that perspective. And so I think we all got the message in that class. Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount, "Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow nor reap nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of more value than they?" When we get caught up in self-concern and we think we got to make it all happen, we got to do it all, we can remember the birds. They don't really do anything. They don't make a product. They don't have a vision board and, work on their manifestation plan, right? They're just being birds. They're flying around. They're finding their food. They're tweeting. They're up on they're up on the telephone line, right? So remembering God is our source, and that we are of great value, and so knowing we're provided for. Like, I get that. I get that when there's a Wednesday that I'm sick and I can't be here, that the whole church doesn't shut down. People step in and service happens. Like, it's not all about me. It's not all about any of us. Life continues. You recognize that when you're sick and you step out and you're like, life continues, and it's good. And you're able to care for yourself, and you're able to come in and do what's yours to do. That there is always that support. There's always that support. There's never any lack in the universe. There's no lack. Remembering God is our source. We don't have to make it all happen. Trusting it's provided for us. That's the letting go of self-concern. So what's the benefit of letting go, being free of self-concern? Well, my mind is free. My mind is free. It's open to greater possibilities. I move from fear to faith. Scripture says to love the Lord your God with all of your mind. So checking in, how much of my mind is loving God right now, and how much of my mind is stuck in the problem, right? Love the Lord our God, trusting in God, having the faith in God with all of your mind, all of your heart, and also the physical blessing of calming your nervous system, letting go of self-concern, letting go of thinking you have to figure it all out, trusting it's good for the body. You're out of that fight, flight, or freeze, and you're open to Spirit's guidance and expression, and open to seeing the beauty. And I let go on my own little window of stuff, and I can see outside. There was a baby possum running around in the bushes out there, and there are little flowers growing in the grass, and just this little, just beauty, just God's beauty showing up in places that when I'm stuck inside myself, I'm not seeing it all, and then I can just be like in my oneness with all the beauty of life. I'm connected. So that's the gift of being free of self-concern. So free from self-concern, and then fasting from that, feasting on compassion for others. So the first blessing of compassion is that moving out of ourselves, out of our stuff, where we're moving our energy out. And I love how beautifully Keith expressed in his song, Rise As Me, the rolling away of the stone. That really our hearts are the nature of our hearts is to be compassionate, but there can be a stone there. So what's your stone? What's the thing that's in the way of you loving that person that you may be not in harmony with, or not seeing eye to eye, or not liking what they're doing in the world? Is it judgment? Is it fear? Is it anger? Resentment? There's a stone that's there, and when we can roll that away, when we can let that go and open to compassion, we shift the energy, and it allows us to rise as me, to allow the Christ, the love that we are, to rise up and express. The word compassion comes from the Latin compati, which means to suffer with. To suffer with, and that's not that we take on other people's pain and we labor and we feel awful. We're not supposed to walk around like that, but to act from our divine nature, to know that my heart has the capacity through the Spirit of God in me to be with you in your pain, to pray with you, to hold your hand, to give you a hug, to listen. And through Spirit within me, within you, that pain becomes transformed through compassion into love. When I was sick, I was coughing a lot, and it's just something, you feel like you don't have control of that, and what can you do to stop that? And I was praying and thinking about that. Sometimes we could think about God kind of up here, like, oh, God is love and light and peace, and I'm down here suffering, and then eventually I'll get back up to that when I'm not sick anymore. And I think, well, God is in everything, is everything, everywhere. God knows my sickness. God feels compassion for that. The love of God is enfolding me and is supporting me through that. And I felt that. I felt that around me, that God knows our suffering and not just the light and when we're at peace. I got this message from the universe today, and I wanted to share it with you. You guys get the notes from the universe? Any of you get that? So this one I thought was great for today. And it said, the reason you sometimes find life hard, people difficult, or circumstances challenging, Jeanmarie, is because it's personalized. Because in each of those areas, you signed up for the advanced course, magna cum laude, baby, the universe. So when you spot that person coming, that you're like, oh, there they are. Wait, spot that, right? Spot the and say, ooh, wait, this is the advanced course. This is what I signed up for. And thank you for signing up for this course with me, because we both get to grow together. And we both get to continue to have chances to work on it and grow through it. So that's when we can come into compassion, when we can get that. And this is not meaning, let's understand that I'm not saying like to be in an abusive relationship, to let people walk all over you. You have to have good boundaries with compassion. This is important. Compassion is not codependency. Okay, codependency, when we don't have good boundaries, when it arises when we need love from other people to have an identity, we need approval outside of ourselves. And so good boundaries, saying no without putting someone outside of our heart. So we can say no and still have the capacity to love and feel compassion and take care of ourselves at the same time. So I thought that was important to say. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 9, Jesus was preaching, proclaiming the good news and healing. And it says, when he saw the crowds, he had compassion for them because they were harassed and helpless, like a sheep without a shepherd. And what I loved about this as I considered it is that Jesus was moved, and he was moved so much that it was visible. That those who took the account of the story recognized that Jesus showed physical signs of compassion for these people. And it wasn't that he was suffering, that he can't preach because I feel so. He was moved, he understood, he cared. And it wasn't pity. So we want to be clear about that compassion isn't pity, because when we can see people who we get pity, like we go, oh, thank God that's not me. We kind of go away, or we do the spiritual thing of, I'm going to stay away from all toxic people, and I'm just going to have my positive people around me, my 5 people who have a high consciousness, and those people are going to be around me, and that's, my spiritual bubble that I'm in. And Jesus didn't do that. If we know Jesus was with the lowest of the low, as they were considered the unclean people, that he was open to everyone. He didn't distance himself. He embraced and was open to the suffering, and he saw the divinity in each person. And so, wanted to share with you from Thich Nhat Hanh. He said, when we come into contact with the other person, our thoughts and actions should express our mind of compassion, even if that person says and does things that are not easy to accept. We practice in this way until we see clearly that our love is not contingent upon the other person being lovable. How often do we do that? Well, as soon as they start treating me nicely, well, then I'll reciprocate. I'll reciprocate, right? What's with their attitude? What's with that face that they came in here with, right? We can get into a judgment, right? I hear some recognition of this, right? Waiting upon that person to be lovable, and that's not what it is. So we want to find out more. We want to take it deeper. So compassion is when we learn that it's safe to be with someone in their pain and their suffering. We can reach out through prayer, through a hug, through listening. Opening our heart is part of our spiritual journey. It's an important part that Jesus expressed and spoke on many times. He lived it, and it brings forth that rise in me, that Christ light. So let's affirm together one more time. I fast from self-concern.
I fast from self-concern.
I feast on compassion for others.
I feast on compassion for others.
And so it is. Namaste.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.